Hey everyone! As we get started on the fall semester, I wanted to first say thank you on behalf of the G2C committee for volunteering to participate in our pilot for year 2 of the process. This video is here to answer some general questions regarding the purpose and value of hybrid grading, overview implementation options, and make suggestions about some practices that have been effective for me in a variety of approaches to hybrid grading. First, a brief reminder of the goal of the 3-year-long process of G2C. We were tasked, university system-wide, to assess and understand student success in gateway courses at our universities. In year 1, we collected and analyzed data that depicted the general experience and expectations of the course, as well as completed a series of key performance indicators as a committee. All of the data suggested that overall, English 1101 has a large range of pedagogical styles that are already implementing many best practices. So we decided to propose a potential change that privileges process pedagogy and employs a grading model that supports process as well. Additionally, we asked that our participants not only engage process pedagogy, which is what most of us are already using to some extent already, and the hybrid grading model, but also select 3 or more micro-level elements that are best practices. Most of us are also already engaging with some of these as well. The selections at the micro level are up to you, and our optional workshops are designed to support the micro level selections you made, so you can select the workshop that best fits the choices you made for your course. The committee also negotiated to reduce course caps for the pilot sections because that is another best practice based upon experience and scholarship in composition. So what is hybrid grading? Well, hybrid grading in this instance uses portfolio, e-portfolio, or print-based, depending on your comfort level, as a major element of the assessment wherein the portfolio accounts for approximately 40 to 60% of the overall grade. This is a shift from full portfolio grading, where the portfolio accounts for 70 to 100% of the final grade, and from paper-by-paper grading, wherein each project is submitted by students for a final grade, and they are usually not revised again. We decided that hybrid grading would benefit our students because it pulls key elements from portfolio, like extended drafting and revising time, as well as practices such as collection, selection, and reflection. But it also makes room for smaller, low-stakes grades that give students regular grades so they know where they stand in the course. Often students' largest complaint about portfolio grading is that they are not explicitly aware of where they stand in the course. Similarly, students often want the opportunity to revise and resubmit projects graded on the paper-by-paper model to improve their existing grade. So our model gives us each room to have 40 to 60% of our course grades come from weekly or daily activities, drafts, peer review, participation, etc., while highlighting the development of a writing process with the other half, give or take, of the course grades coming from the portfolio. That being said, you can implement hybrid grading in a way that best supports your composition pedagogy. For instance, you can use paper-by-paper grading in a couple of ways. You can do as-is grading that tells students that this is the grade that the essay will receive with no revisions for the e-portfolio. Generally, this approach produces a best work portfolio, wherein students include the final drafts of each project and any other course elements you decided. And you can choose to include a section on their process for a single project if you would like. This shows their polished and most successful work. A secondary approach for hybrid grading is represented in the documents I shared on Friday, August 9th. Students receive grades for drafts. I do completion on the early drafts and then assess completion and quality of the final draft that they submit. In this approach, it is the expectation that students do make revisions, edits, etc. to the final before it arrives in the portfolio, print or e-portfolio at the end of the semester. This approach creates more of what is called a process portfolio, wherein students include more elements that supported them for each project from start to finish: drafts, feedback, peer review, mini or in-class assignments, and even reading responses. Personally, when I do hybrid grading in this manner, I have a best work section, all of the final projects and students selected best work in smaller course activities, as well as a process section. I usually only require the process to be represented for one project, but many students end up choosing to include the process for other projects as well, and I have required that in the past in both hybrid grading and portfolio-based grading. In this approach, I am constantly reminding students to save everything for each project so they can select the process that is the most in-depth for them. In the documents I shared last week, you can see the breakdown of grades and points in my approach to the ePortfolio on its corresponding assignment sheet, which can easily be shifted toward a more print-based option if you prefer. A print-based option could still be submitted digitally as a large document, PDF or Word, where there's a table of contents, etc. It could also be in hard copy if that suits your grading style. You may have also noticed that there are a lot of points possible in my course. I am of the mind that when students have more room for error, they will take more risks in their composing because they have more wiggle room. Feel free to approach your grading scheme or point system in a way that fits with your pedagogy. As you finalize your course schedules, consider when you will introduce the portfolio. Personally, I have done this in 3 distinct ways. One option is to save it for the very end as the final project, introducing it after all of the preceding coursework is complete. This is often successful, but can sometimes feel overwhelming to you as well as your students as everything comes to a close. It is most conducive with a strictly best work portfolio. The second option is to introduce it as an overarching element of the course at the beginning, before any work has begun. This can also be successful, but it often feels abstract to students because they haven't produced anything that will be a part of the portfolio yet. This approach can be useful if you want to dedicate a couple of days a month to the development, design, and curation of the portfolio, especially if it will be an e-portfolio. Finally, a third approach, one that I have been most successful with, is introducing the portfolio around midterm. By this point, students have completed some of the work and can begin to collect and select their elements. This works for both best work and process, or the combination of the two, as you can see on my portfolio assignment sheet, because you can dedicate a few days throughout the rest of the semester to work on the portfolio, as well as really finalize it in the last couple of weeks of the semester. This approach can also be seen in my course schedule that I shared on August 9th. It also tends to feel more concrete to students by that time, and ideally, they are not rushing to complete the whole portfolio from start to finish in the final weeks of the course. Overall, the goal of hybrid grading is to provide students and faculty with the space and time of process pedagogy and revision, as well as the security of regular grades. As we move forward in this process together, we will meet for a 1-hour workshop on hybrid grading in week 3 of this semester, and we will answer questions as well as discuss our individual approaches to this grading model. I'll also provide some support for ePortfolios if you are interested in this route, but have some reservations about your level of comfort with digital technology. In that part, I will give a rundown of a few useful platforms that are easy to navigate for both faculty and students, give some guidance on what I mean when I talk about curation, perhaps even schedule an ePortfolio workshop for you and or your students. I also have a store of support documents that I'm happy to share as needed. If you have any other questions as we begin this semester, feel free to email Michael or I, and we will see what we can do in terms of supporting your approach to our grading model as well as your micro elements. Good luck!